Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for April 25, 2022, the Culture is King edition. And we begin with that story from the Wall Street Journal, Risk and Compliance Journal, Dylan Tokar reporting. As companies have pushed, or regulators have pushed companies to foster a culture among employees that encourages compliance, but measuring this can be tricky. Companies are looking to measure their compliance culture, attempting to resort using a variety of tools such as strategic interviews, to employee perception surveys, to focus groups. No matter how difficult it can be, regulators expect the companies to do so. So as we see, as culture has become more important, measuring it, assessing it, and managing that risk from the lessons you use from ongoing monitoring is critical going forward. So if you're not assessing your culture, you're missing the boat in terms of what the regulators are looking for. Our next story also comes from the Wall Street Journal, and it was a really long story in the Saturday edition about Starbucks and its identity crisis and the return of Howard Schultz. Originally, I was somewhat skeptical about Schultz returning to Starbucks. Of course, he was the founder, and this is his 3rd term back as CEO. But the company really, I don't want to say it lost its way, but the market changed so much during the pandemic in terms of going to online purchases and drive-thrus. Starbucks was set up to create a third space between home and work and have a customer experience that was second to none. And during the pandemic, many stores were shut down for a lengthy period of time, and people just have not returned. Also, interestingly, is the drink preference change to cold drinks. So it's a different way of thinking about risk management, nevertheless, a significant in bringing Howard Schultz back. Next up, from the New York Times, the Boston consulting firm of Bain Co. has gotten into some potential FCPA and or corruption hot water from in South Africa, as it has a judicial inquiry found that South Africa's tax agency had colluded with Bain & Company and the former president of the country, President Zuma. This is part of the ongoing investigation regarding the capture issue, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Bain. And finally, what happened to CNN Plus, a lengthy article also in the New York Times that talks about some of the tensions of rolling out a large product or service offering immediately before you're acquired and what that means for both the acquired and the acquirer. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.